What can you tell me about censorship and this hunger for power to control the information?
Yeah, censorship is crucial. So it has been for all of human history. I mean, from literally back to Rome or Shaka Zulu Empire in Africa, doesn't matter. So I always say it's a two-hander. You need propaganda, and as Goebbels said, I believe during the war, the Second World War, give me control of the media or the radio in those days, and I will turn any nation into a nation of pigs. So this is very well understood by all the organizations and oligarchies. You must have massive propaganda to just totally brainwash the population. One other clever thing they did for the last 50 years, very clever, was they instilled the idea of, quote, conspiracy theory. So they trained the world's population to believe that anything that indicated powerful forces way up above us were conspiring to control us like cattle, that is always a conspiracy theory. And it worked really well. But the propaganda is crucial, and we saw that in enormous waves since March 2020 especially. But the other thing you need, it's a two-hander. Propaganda, but you also need censorship. Because if you allow people to talk about the propaganda, chances are the wisdom of crowds will begin to grow, and people will begin to talk and realize, hold on a minute, something doesn't smell right here. And then they'll talk about those things. And then it's a snowball effect. So you must have severe and effective censorship in order for the propaganda to flourish. So it's huge. Now, we see in the WHO treaty, of course, one of the key things they've put in it is basically information control systems. And they say it. We need information control and essentially censorship. We need only one voice on any health matters, supposedly to protect us, but obviously it's to make sure people don't talk and begin to realize we are being scammed on a colossal scale. And interestingly, another key thing, I interviewed Philip Cruz last week in Switzerland, and I wanted to talk to him on the two key points he raised in his talk at the conference I attended. One was the information control, which is horrifying that they would write that into an international document. But the other one was a register of pathogens, including their genetic code, and inviting all the countries around the world to submit the pathogens they've either discovered or maybe they've helped encourage or gain of function improved. And then this big register would be accessible to everyone. That is insanity, clearly. It's the definition of insanity if you're a biochemical engineer like I am. It's absurd. And yet it's written into all these documents. It's astonishing, really, isn't it? The arrogance and the scope of what they want to do. And it's so obvious to anyone who's informed on this.
And obviously they use the health, which is a very sensitive issue, and that's what they did, scaremongering, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And you know, if I just touch back to the story, back in, I don't know, the 50s and 60s, the Rockefeller Special Studies Project with Kissinger leading it, remember that guy? That laid out a prospect for America and the world. And I gave a couple of quotes about what they wanted, and they've come a long way. Council for Foreign Relations, they set up in 1970 with David Rockefeller as the chair, and that brought in all the world's leaders and top influencers and elite wealthy people. And the CFO has done incredible work, if we're honest. And then they began to identify global challenges. And interestingly, one was global health, because they knew you needed global health issues to fool people into supporting a world government. You needed crises, and then they could provide the solution. Sound familiar? But also, of course, their other key one was climate and environment. So climate fear was identified as a useful opportunity by the Rockefellers as far back as the 1950s. And they have funded hundreds of climate propaganda and fear groups. So yes, health, fear, and climate fear, and financial collapse fear, these are the big opportunities they identified 70, 80 years ago. And that's essentially why we see all of those things in our propagandized media morning, noon and night.